And we're back for the Constitution Line by Line. I'm Paul Fabrizio.
And I'm Don Frazier.
And we are working our way through Article 1 of the Constitution. We've now reached Section 4. Are you ready?
I'm ready for Section 4, man. This is a good one.
Okay, here we go. The times, places, and manners of holding elections for senators and representatives shall be prescribed by each state by the legislature thereof, but the Congress may at any time, by law, make or alter such regulations, except as to the choosing of senators, except as to the places of choosing senators.
Okay, you're going to have to unpack this one. This sounds like a housekeeping.
This is very, very much a housekeeping thing. In other words, what it says is that each state gets to make the determination about the elections of its members.
Great.
Okay?
So when the voting will be held?
The times, places, and manners. So in other words, there's state control over that.
Great.
Okay? By the way, that's an issue when you think about allowing African Americans to vote, for example. You think about civil rights. You think about voting rights.
Because you could say, yeah, the place of polling is going to be on a barge off the coast of Corpus Christi in Texas.
Exactly.
And then only people that can afford to get to the barge off the coast of Corpus Christi get to vote. Yeah, I get that.
So the original idea was to allow state control. And the thinking was, of course, that each state knows its citizenry the best and also understands its local conditions the best.
Correct.
So if you're in Rhode Island, how you have elections is different than what you need in Georgia.
Didn't you mean Rhode Island and Providence Plantation?
I did,
okay.
But I quickly forget that. I need to remember that. So each state gets to figure that out for themselves. But you notice there is this clause, but Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations.
So don't take advantage of us.
That's
states.
Right. And in fact, in the 1960s, you think about the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, they are taking advantage of this little clause to strip power from the states and say, hey, we're going to provide federal regulation regarding elections.
You know what is striking me about the Constitution all the way up to this point, and I'm sure well beyond, is that there are so many little cast-off lines that really have never mattered much until they did.
Exactly.
And then a lot of times they mattered a lot.
And you can just sit there and you can imagine some legislator someplace poring over the Constitution. They want to achieve something and they can't. They need to find a way to do it.
Looking for a loophole.
Hey, here it is. Here it is. And
or they've got some 24-year-old, intern looking for it, or somebody fresh out of law school didn't want to hang out their shingle, now on the staff.
Yeah, and they go, what does this mean? Why is it here?
What's the precedent? Can you do a little research?
Yeah, exactly.
Head down to the Library of Congress and see if you can kind of get a rundown on this all the way back to the 1790s.
And they turn to historians for that.
They do turn to historians a bunch.
Yeah. So this is one of those things where we know that Congress can interfere with elections, and they have. And now it's such on the basis of the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah, I was about to say Voting Rights Act comes to mind.
Yeah. Certain states have to get federal approval if they're going to make changes to their rules.
What?
Yes.
Certain states have to say, Mother, may I, to the federal government?
Yep.
Please, Paul. What states are these?
Well, most of them are in the South. Texas.
Paul, say it ain't so.
And you can explain why, Don.
Yeah, that's because they came in second in a little thing we call the American Civil War, ultimately. Yes. And so there's consequences for secession.
Yes.
There's consequences for losing your gambit.
There's consequences for segregation.
Yeah,
there's consequences for treating people horribly.
Jim Crow laws, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So what the Constitution, I doubt the framers really anticipated this. But they left the line in there.
What's so interesting to me is they left that little hook in there in case you needed to annex another sheet of cloth on there.
Yep.
That's another piece of wisdom.
Yes, it is.
That's remarkable.
And
was it their wisdom or how people applied it? It's wisdom.
I would go with the second. there must have been something. You think about the framers. Why would they have allowed
They're
Congress
sitting there
to take
cutting
it over?
into the roast pork over at the tavern, going, wait a second.
Wait a
It's
second.
something we hadn't thought about here.
And we need to allow a loophole for the states. So in essence, I mean, I hate to say it, so many people say, it's the states that are so important, but there's these little bombs in the Constitution that allow the federal government to do things.
To thump them right in the forehead.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just in there. And so the framers, I think, were aware of the tendencies of states to do what they want. And in the end, they wanted to tie everything together. And so they chose these little things to tie them together. This is one of them.
And history has proven that a lot of times you get some state advocates that are not working in the national interest. John C. Calhoun comes to mind.
Okay.
But,
yeah.
And so this is, I get this. I mean, I completely get this.
Yeah. So when we think about the framers, what I always think of is that they are products of the state legislatures. They're products of the states. They knew the kind of people that would be there, and they didn't trust them.
They didn't trust the people that sent them.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, because they had witnessed those debates back in Richmond and back in places like that.
Yeah, so they said, what are we going to do in case they go crazy?
Yeah.
And so here's a way to do it. I really like this little part there in the Constitution.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I do want to say there was this last little line that I misread but corrected, except as to places of choosing senators. That part has been taken over, changed by the 17th Amendment.
That's right, because it doesn't matter anymore. We're just going to let them
That's right.
get on Facebook and run for office.
Yes, exactly. He has so many issues with this.
I do.
Anyway, there you go. Times of election for members of Congress. The times, places, and manners are up to the state. But
unless they abuse that privilege.
That's right. All right, there you go.
That's our line. All right, so we'll pick up another line in the next episode. Thanks.